Hidden within the stacks of everyday change lies a rare treasure, ultra-rare Lincoln pennies that can fetch staggering prices, making collectors and numismatists alike do a double take. Some of these pennies are worth more than you'd ever imagine, and you won't believe just how much. Stay tuned until the end to discover which penny could be sitting in your pocket right now. The 2006 USA 1-cent penny might seem like an ordinary piece of currency to most people, something you'd hardly give a second glance. After all, it's just a penny, barely worth the effort to pick up if you find it on the ground. But what if I told you that this seemingly mundane coin has a fascinating story behind it and could be worth a small fortune? To understand how this ordinary penny turned into something extraordinary, we first need to take a step back and explore the rich history of the penny itself. The penny is one of the oldest coins in the United States, first minted in 1793. Over the centuries, this tiny coin has seen several design changes, each marking a significant moment in American history. But even with all the changes over time, there's one thing that has remained constant: the penny's status as a symbol of American currency. The most iconic version of the penny, featuring Abraham Lincoln's profile on the obverse, was introduced in 1909 to celebrate the 100th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. This design, which would become synonymous with the penny, has been in circulation for over a century. The reverse of the coin also underwent changes through the years, the most notable being the introduction of the Lincoln Memorial in 1959 to honor the great leader's legacy. However, in 2006, something remarkable happened. This would be the final year the penny would feature the familiar Lincoln Memorial design on the back. The U.S. Mint decided to retire it in favor of a new reverse design that would celebrate Lincoln's life and legacy in more detail, in honor of his bicentennial birth year, 2009. This decision set in motion a series of pennies that would feature a variety of reverse designs, each showcasing a different chapter of Lincoln's life, but let's focus on the 2006 penny itself. While most people were expecting the shift to the new design in 2009, the 2006 penny, still bearing the classic memorial reverse, marked a quiet turning point in American numismatics. What made this year particularly interesting for collectors wasn't just the design on the back but something far more subtle, an anomaly that would set the 2006 penny apart from the billions of others minted during that year. You see, the 2006 penny wasn't perfect. Among the millions of pennies minted at the U.S. Mint in Philadelphia, a few of them carried an error, something that would go largely unnoticed by the casual observer. These pennies were struck with a minor but noticeable flaw in the die, a die crack. It was an imperfection, a small raised line in the design of the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse side of the coin. To the untrained eye, it might look like nothing more than a slight imperfection, a characteristic that would often be overlooked and dismissed, but to a seasoned numismatist, the story was different. The die crack on the 2006 penny was a rare occurrence, and rare is exactly what collectors are always on the lookout for. Errors in the minting process are highly prized in the world of coin collecting, especially when the error is subtle enough to be considered unusual but not glaringly obvious. For those who could spot the die crack, it marked the beginning of a hunt, an exciting pursuit to find these error coins and see just how much they could be worth in the market. The die crack wasn't the only reason collectors started to pay closer attention to the 2006 penny. Many also saw it as the last opportunity to acquire a piece of American numismatic history before the switch to the new reverse designs featuring scenes from Lincoln's life. The 2006 penny, with its Lincoln Memorial design, represented the end of an era. It became a final tribute to a coin design that had been in circulation for decades. As news of the die crack error spread among collectors, the hunt for these rare pennies began in earnest. Coin dealers, numismatists, and collectors alike began combing through rolls of pennies, checking for the distinctive error that could potentially make their find worth much more than its face value. Some collectors went as far as to sift through large collections, hoping to discover one of these elusive error coins. It wasn't long before the price of the 2006 penny with the die crack began to rise. The more rare a coin is, the more valuable it becomes, especially when there's a unique error involved. Coins that are in near mint condition, or those that are free from wear and tear, always fetch the highest prices. As time passed, the market began to recognize the 2006 penny as something special, and the value of these error coins started to climb. Now, for the moment you've been waiting for, the value of a 2006 penny with the die crack. If you're lucky enough to have one of these rare finds, particularly in mint or near mint condition, it could be worth as much as $24,000. That's right, this humble penny, with its small die crack, has fetched incredible prices at auctions, and the excitement among collectors continues to grow. What was once a piece of pocket change is now an object of significant value, proving just how powerful a rare error coin can be in the world of numismatics. The key to this value lies in the rarity of the error, the condition of the coin, and the ever-growing demand among collectors who are willing to pay a premium for unique and historically significant items. The 2006 penny with the die crack stands as a testament to how even the smallest imperfections can transform a seemingly ordinary coin into an extraordinary treasure. So, if you're ever sifting through your spare change or checking through old coin jars, don't dismiss that 2006 penny too quickly. You might just have a hidden gem in your hands, one that could make you a small fortune. And remember, in the world of coin collecting, a small mistake in minting can often lead to a great discovery. Up next, the 1996 Lincoln penny with the D mint mark. At first glance, this penny might look like just another regular coin you've seen countless times before. But behind this small, everyday piece of currency lies a fascinating story, one that involves rarity, historical context, and a surprising twist that would lead to the coin's value skyrocketing to an astonishing price. Before diving into the details of the 1996 D mint mark penny, let's take a moment to understand the broader context of the penny itself. The 1-cent coin has been a vital part of American currency since 1793, and throughout its long history, it has undergone many changes in design. But perhaps the most iconic version of the penny is the one that features Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, which was first introduced in 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. This design, with Lincoln's profile on the front, is now deeply embedded in American culture. For decades, the reverse side of the penny featured the Lincoln Memorial, a design introduced in 1959 to honor the memory of Abraham Lincoln. The image of the memorial, with its grand columns, has been on the back of the penny for nearly 40 years by the time we reach 1996. This made the 1996 penny significant in a way that many might not have realized at the time. It was one of the last years for this particular reverse design before it would be replaced in 2009 with new reverse designs marking the bicentennial of Lincoln's birth. But in 1996, the penny was still a familiar sight, with the Lincoln Memorial proudly depicted on the reverse. However, while the penny was still in circulation, there was something unique going on behind the scenes at the U.S. Mint. In 1996, the U.S. Mint produced billions of pennies, as it did every year. However, not all of these coins were the same, and some of them would become the focus of intense interest for collectors. The reason? The 1996 D mint mark pennies contained a rare minting error that would soon capture the attention of coin collectors everywhere. The D mint mark indicates that the coin was produced at the Denver Mint, which is one of the main facilities responsible for minting U.S. coins. Normally, pennies produced in Denver bear the D mint mark on the obverse side of the coin, right next to Lincoln's image. But in 1996, something unusual happened during the minting process. A small number of these pennies were struck with what's known as a double die error. This error occurred when the die used to strike the coin was misaligned or reused improperly, resulting in a doubling effect in the coin's design, particularly on the numbers of the date and other details on the coin's surface. The presence of this double die error on the 1996 D mint mark pennies was significant. It meant that certain coins produced that year had a noticeable, almost imperceptible doubling of the numbers, letters, and fine details in the design. The misalignment caused by the error gave the coin a slightly distorted look, making it different from the majority of pennies that were struck that year. To the casual observer, these errors may have gone unnoticed, but to a keen-eyed numismatist or coin collector, they were a goldmine. Minting errors, especially those as rare and distinctive as the double die error, are highly valued in the world of coin collecting. When these 1996 D mint mark pennies with the double die error were discovered, collectors began scrambling to find them. And as news of the error spread, the value of these pennies began to rise rapidly. So, how much are these error coins worth? Initially, the 1996 D mint mark pennies with the double die error were relatively modest in value. However, as the years passed and more collectors became aware of the rarity and appeal of these coins, their price began to climb. But what truly made this penny valuable was its condition. Coins that are well preserved, free from scratches, and with sharp, clear details command the highest prices. And among the 1996 pennies with the double die error, a few exceptional examples stood out. coins that were nearly flawless. It wasn't long before one particularly well-preserved example of the 1996 double die penny appeared at auction, and the results were nothing short of remarkable. This coin, in pristine condition, fetched an unbelievable $77,000. This high price wasn't just due to the error itself but also because the coin was in near-perfect condition, making it even rarer and more desirable to collectors. Now, you might be wondering, how does a single penny end up being worth so much money? The answer lies in the rarity of the error and the coin's condition. While most 1996 pennies are worth just 1 cent, the ones with the double die error are highly sought after because they are so rare. And when you combine that rarity with a coin that's in exceptional condition, untouched by the wear and tear that most coins accumulate during circulation, you have a coin that could potentially fetch thousands, even tens of thousands, of dollars. In the world of coin collecting, it's these rare errors that are often the most valuable. The 1996 double die penny is a perfect example of how even the smallest mistake during the minting process can create a coin that's worth far more than its face value. For collectors, the thrill of discovering these error coins and the potential financial reward that comes with owning them makes the hunt all the more exciting. So, if you happen to come across a 1996 penny with the D mint mark, take a moment to examine it closely. If you find any signs of doubling or other unusual features, you could be holding a rare and valuable coin in your hands. It's possible that you've discovered a piece of American numismatic history, one that could be worth far more than just 1 cent. The 1996 double die penny serves as a reminder that sometimes, the most ordinary things can turn into something extraordinary. It's a story of how a small mistake, combined with the right conditions and a bit of luck, can transform an everyday coin into a hidden treasure worth thousands of dollars. So, next time you're looking through your spare change, don't forget to give that 1996 penny with the D mint mark a second glance. You never know what you might find. Up next, the 1988 USA 1 cent penny. To the untrained eye, this coin might look like just another common penny you'd find in your pocket change. But, much like the unassuming objects that often carry the greatest value, the 1988 penny tells a much bigger story, one that's steeped in history, minting anomalies, and a thrilling surprise for collectors. It's a coin that's not just about what it looks like, but the secret behind its design and the error that makes it so rare and highly coveted. Before diving into the specifics of the 1988 penny, let's take a brief look at the broader history of the penny itself. The 1 cent coin has been a fixture of American currency since 1793, and its design has evolved over time to reflect the nation's changing values and history. Most famously, in 1909, the penny began featuring the profile of Abraham Lincoln, which became an enduring symbol of American coinage. Since then, the penny has gone through a variety of designs, but by 1988, it was still bearing the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, a design that had been in use since 1959. The Lincoln Memorial reverse was a striking tribute to the nation's 16th president, and it remained the standard design for decades. By 1988, the penny was well into the second half of the 20th century, and while there had been discussions about eventually redesigning the coin, the 1988 penny was just another regular issue, one that most people wouldn't have thought twice about. Yet, as we'll soon see, this seemingly ordinary penny would come to play an important role in the world of coin collecting, all due to an unexpected error. So, what makes the 1988 penny special? To begin with, the 1988 penny was struck by the U.S. Mint during a period of high production. The minting process for pennies in this era was routine, and billions of coins were produced each year to meet the needs of circulation. But in this process, a few anomalies slipped through the cracks, something that coin collectors are always on the lookout for. The error that would give the 1988 penny its value wasn't immediately obvious. To most people, a 1988 penny would appear just like any other, but those with a keen eye for details were able to spot subtle differences that set certain pennies apart. In 1988, there was a significant production flaw involving the dies used to mint the coins. Minting dies are the metal tools used to press the design into the blank planchets, and when these dies become misaligned or worn down, they can cause strange visual effects in the final coin. This is where things get interesting for the 1988 penny. At the Denver Mint, a number of 1988 pennies were struck with a misaligned die, creating what's known as a double die error. This error occurs when the die is improperly aligned during the minting process, resulting in a slight doubling effect on the coin's design. Specifically, in the case of the 1988 penny, this error was most noticeable in the date and certain details of the reverse design, where the image of the Lincoln Memorial would appear with a distorted, doubled outline. At first, the error went unnoticed by most of the public, and many of these misstruck coins were either discarded or spent like any other penny. But for collectors, these rare errors are like hidden treasures. When word got out about the 1988 double-die pennies, demand for these rare examples quickly skyrocketed. Collectors began scouring their change, looking for the telltale signs of a double die, distorted numbers and letters, and the ghosting effect that's typical of this kind of minting error. While most of the 1988 pennies remained relatively low in value, a small number of these error coins were discovered in near-perfect condition, and that's when things really started to get exciting. Coins with minting errors, particularly those with a double die, are highly desirable in the numismatic community. The rarity of these errors, combined with the fact that some were still in excellent condition, made them a hot commodity among collectors. Now, here's where the real story takes a dramatic turn. In the years that followed the discovery of the double die error, several examples of these rare 1988 pennies began to emerge at auctions and coin shows. As the market for these error coins grew, the prices began to rise, and one particularly flawless example of the 1988 double-die penny set the coin-collecting world ablaze when it sold for an astonishing price. Can you guess how much this rare 1988 penny sold for at auction? Prepare yourself. This penny, which was once worth just 1 cent, was sold for an eye-popping $91,000, yes, $91,000 for a single penny. This isn't some ancient relic or a coin that's hundreds of years old. It's a modern penny, minted in 1988, just over 30 years ago. What makes this particular coin so valuable is the combination of the double die error and its pristine condition. In the world of coin collecting, the condition of a coin is everything. A penny that was struck with such a distinct error and preserved in near-perfect condition is an incredibly rare find, and it's this rarity that drives the price up so dramatically. So, how can you spot a 1988 penny that could potentially be worth tens of thousands of dollars? The key lies in examining the date and the details of the Lincoln Memorial reverse. If you see doubling or a blurry, shadow-like effect on the numbers or letters, you might be looking at a double die error. If you find one of these in pristine, uncirculated condition, you could be holding onto a rare treasure that might be worth far more than its face value. The 1988 USA 1-cent penny is a perfect example of how a seemingly ordinary coin can become extraordinary. It shows that even modern coins, which might be overlooked in everyday life, can carry immense value if they have the right features and history behind them. The excitement of discovering a coin like the 1988 double-die penny reminds us that the world of numismatics is filled with hidden gems just waiting to be found. Up next, the 1983 USA 1-cent penny. At first glance, the 1983 penny may seem like just another regular coin, something you've seen countless times in your pocket change. But as with many items in the world of coin collecting, this seemingly mundane penny has a fascinating story behind it, one filled with historical significance, a major design change, and a rare, surprising twist that would later make it worth a small fortune. Let's step back for a moment to understand the historical context of the penny. The 1-cent coin has been part of U.S. currency for over 2 centuries, since it was first introduced in 1793. Throughout its history, the design of the penny has evolved in response to changing times, reflecting the nation's shifting values, priorities, and leaders. By 1983, the U.S. penny had undergone several notable design changes, with the most famous being the introduction of Abraham Lincoln's image on the obverse side in 1909. The reverse of the penny, meanwhile, featured the iconic image of the Lincoln Memorial starting in 1959, a design that had been used for decades by the time the 1983 penny was minted. Now, 1983 was an interesting year for U.S. coinage. While there were no sweeping redesigns that year, the U.S. Mint was facing some challenges in keeping up with demand. As inflation was rising and the economy was shifting, the penny, worth just 1 cent, was beginning to be seen as less and less valuable in everyday transactions. In fact, there was growing concern that it was becoming more expensive to produce than it was actually worth. This led to a major change in the composition of the penny, which would eventually have significant implications for both the production process and the collector's market. Prior to 1982, pennies were made of 95% copper and 5% zinc. However, the rising cost of copper led to a shift in the coin's material composition. Beginning in 1982, the U.S. Mint began producing pennies with a much cheaper composition, 97.5% zinc and only 2.5% copper, with a thin copper plating. This drastic change, although necessary for economic reasons, went largely unnoticed by the general public. For collectors, however, it was a significant moment in the history of the penny, as it meant that the 1982 and 1983 pennies were among the last to feature the old copper alloy, which would soon be phased out. It's here that the 1983 penny comes into focus. You see, in 1983, the US Mint produced billions of pennies, as it did every year. But because the switch in the penny's composition happened gradually, some pennies from 1983 were still struck with the old copper mixture, while others were made with the new zinc composition. The minting process wasn't perfect, and as a result, a small number of 1983 pennies were accidentally made with the old copper alloy. And this is where the magic of coin collecting begins. The 1983 copper pennies are extremely rare, as the vast majority of the pennies produced that year were made with the new zinc core. To the casual observer, there's very little difference between a copper 1983 penny and one made of zinc, but to a trained numismatist, this minor variation is incredibly important. The copper pennies from 1983 were a mistake, an anomaly in the production process, and as a result, they're highly sought after by collectors. But how could these pennies go unnoticed? The key lies in the subtle differences in composition and appearance. A copper penny from 1983, when compared to the typical zinc penny from the same year, will have a different weight and color. Copper pennies have a darker, reddish hue and are slightly heavier than their zinc counterparts. When a 1983 penny was struck with the copper composition, it was still intended to be part of the regular coinage, but it was ultimately deemed an error because it didn't match the new, cheaper standard. As you can imagine, this rare error became something of a holy grail for collectors. Initially, they were not easy to find. Most 1983 pennies that circulated were made with the zinc alloy, which became the new standard. Those few copper pennies that slipped through the cracks were quickly spotted by sharp-eyed collectors, who began to hold on to them. They knew that these pennies were incredibly rare and might one day become worth much more than their face value of 1 cent. But even as collectors began to realize the value of the 1983 copper penny, it wasn't until the late 1990s and early 2000s that the full scope of the coin's rarity was understood. As interest in error coins grew, more and more collectors started searching for the elusive copper pennies from 1983. In fact, there was a time when these coins were even regarded as the holy grail of modern US coinage. Now, you might be wondering, how much are these 1983 copper pennies actually worth? When they were first discovered, the copper 1983 pennies were still relatively inexpensive. However, as the demand for them grew, so did their value. The rarity of these coins, the fact that only a handful of them were produced, drove up their price, and as more collectors began to recognize their importance, their value shot through the roof. But it wasn't until one particularly well-preserved 1983 copper penny was sold at auction that the true value of these rare coins became widely known. This coin, which had been carefully preserved in immaculate condition, fetched an astonishing $98,000. Yes, you read that right, $98,000 for a penny that, at first glance, appears to be just another common coin. This discovery shocked the numismatic community and brought the 1983 copper penny into the spotlight as one of the most valuable modern US coins in existence. Why did this penny fetch such a high price? The answer lies in its rarity, its minting error, and its exceptional condition. Coins that are well preserved, with minimal wear and sharp details, are far more valuable than coins that have been heavily circulated. And in this case, the combination of the copper composition and flawless condition made this 1983 penny an incredibly valuable piece of US coinage history. So, if you're wondering how to tell if you found a 1983 copper penny with this rare error, it's not always easy to spot. The key signs to look for are the penny's color and weight. The copper penny will have a reddish hue and be slightly heavier than the zinc version. If you come across a penny that appears to be copper in color, it could be worth checking more closely. With such a small number of these coins still in existence, it's possible that you could be holding on to something worth thousands of dollars, maybe even more. The story of the 1983 USA 1-cent penny is a perfect example of how the world of coin collecting is full of surprises. What might seem like an ordinary penny can actually be a rare, valuable piece of history. Whether it's a minting error, a slight variation in composition, or just a well-preserved example of a certain year, the world of numismatics reminds us that even the smallest details can make a huge difference in value. So, if you happen to come across a 1983 penny in your change or your collection, take a moment to examine it closely. You might just have a rare copper penny on your hands, one that could be worth up to $98,000.